Please give a warm welcome to director Paul Feig.
Thank you, everybody. If you stayed, it means you didn't hate the movie. Thank you.
What a great honor to have you here, Paul.
Oh, my
A
goodness.
big fan of your films. I want to start with the costumes. What I love about your usage of costumes in this film is like they actually tell about the character and about the situation. Her entrance is unbelievable with it looks like a high couture prison guard.
Yeah, well, that was all Blake. I mean, that was honestly at least the idea because, yeah, she was like, I should enter in a prison suit. And we're like, well, Renee Kalfas, my amazing costume designer, did the first one too. We were like, okay, how do we do that? But then Blake will throw you ideas that seem very off the wall and over the top. And then my team takes it and makes it work, and it's kind of amazing, because then Renee found that fabric that has the stripes and all that, but then Blake's like, okay, now I'm going to add like jewelry that looks like shackles and handcuffs and all that, and it was it all just kind of worked, and that's what I love. I'm a big fan of people who come in with out of left field ideas that, if you can justify it and make it work, it's fantastic. If you can't, you don't do it.
But you also lean into it because when we first appear as a slow-mo and we see her shoes and...
Yeah. Well, we wanted to, the first movie, if anybody's seen the first film, we introduce her with the Louboutins coming out of the car, and she's got the suit and the hat and all this, and... we just, we wanted to make sure we gave her the same entrance that then we make fun of when Stephanie shows up in her tennis shoes and neck pillow. But yeah, Emily is a creature from another planet, and when she shows up, it has to be a big deal.
But is tied to the character, and also, I mean, like for example, when we get on the plane for Capri, she's going to marry a gangster, and she's dressed up like Al Capone.
Yeah, exactly. Again, that was Blake. She was just like, I should dress like I'm in the mafia. And we're like, okay, well, that's a big swing. But then, you find these things. And the biggest thing for us was the first movie was all about her in this, she's kind of running this company for this man, this Dennis Nylon guy. But she's kind of controlling him. So she's this woman in a man's world, so she's dressing in these power suits, which was based on when we were putting together the first movie, we're trying to figure out what Emily's look was going to be. Was it going to be sexy? Was it going to be this and that? And then I always dress in a suit and tie, and usually in a three-piece suit. I'm a little casual tonight, I apologize. And she looked at me and said, I want to dress like you. So she basically based her character on how I dressed, but we got all these, had contacts, I have contacts at Ralph Lauren, and so they gave us out of the archives all these Ralph Lauren suits from the archives that she and Renee took and retailored and added all these pins and different kind of ties that were very interesting. And so that was the look we had for that, but I wanted to make sure for this movie we didn't just repeat that, but we wanted to kind of transition into that, out of it, I should say. So, but the whole story is Emily now is not running a man's world. Now she is coming in, pretending to be, and now you've seen the movie, the twist, pretending to be the trophy wife of this guy who she is the beard of. So she has to bring ultra glamour, ultra fashion, ultra money look. And so that's what we had fun with that.
I promise this is the last question about outfits.
We could talk about this all night. So.
Okay, good.
It's my favorite part.
The wedding dress and the blood-stained veil.
Yeah.
Tell us about who came up. Did Blake also come up?
It's Blake again, once again. No, I mean Blake is kind of a genius. She really is, because she knows this character inside and out. And we wanted some over-the-top wedding dress, and she's like, it needs to be latex. We're like, what? So that dress she's wearing is latex. That whole bodysuit is latex. But then Renee said, oh, let's put a giant veil on it. So Renee came up with this 20-foot veil, and then we had all set. Blake says, well, it should look like it has blood on the back of it. So then, yeah, they went and they dyed. They took this to Naples, and they dyed this thing, and then they spent 100 hours sewing all these ruby kind of, jeweled beads on it. And it's just, it's spectacular. I mean, but that's what we wanted. We wanted this movie to just be like, look, I'm a maximalist. I want things to just be like, if we're going to do it, let's just go way over the top. Because you don't see a lot of that in movies these days. In a way, you see it through action and special effects, but like, you don't see it in kind of costumes and all that. And that's the fun of this character.
It's a major throwback. I mentioned that I was a huge fan, and you have had such a great success with female-driven comedies, you know, Bridesmaids, Heat, Spy, and Simple Favor. But you'd never done a sequel.
No.
Until now. Why? And was it terrifying for you to do?
Yeah, it's terrifying because I've always avoided sequels because when you do a movie that kind of works and is considered successful, you always feel like you kind of got away with something. I guess it's kind of imposter syndrome a little bit because like movies are 100. You know, look, the whole auteur theory I'm very down on because like you can have a vision, but all these people have to realize it for you. You're working with a giant team of experts and artists and all these things, and there's a million different ideas coming in, and you're wrangling all this stuff. And you work on the script, make sure that's all focused and great, but at the same time, you're kind of rolling the dice every time you make a movie. You know, like I'm known for like all my dailies. So like when the footage comes in each day, the studio's so happy and they're so excited, and they love every moment. But I'm always kind of going like, I just hope it adds up because I've had that. Every take is great. When you add it up, you put it together into a 2-hour thing.
Correct.
Sometimes you're like, okay, there's a problem. Like people aren't tracking these characters. They're not investing in these characters. So to do a sequel from something that kind of worked, it's terrifying. But I love these characters so much, and I love working with Blake and Anna. They're just wonderful, and I love the whole cast, which we brought them all back except Jean Smart, who couldn't do it because she was doing another thing. We brought in Elizabeth Perkins, who was spectacular. Yeah, we just thought, let's try it. But it took us years to develop the script. I mean, we threw out a whole greenlit script at one point, just because going back to fashion, it was all about them kind of, Dante was killed much earlier, and Emily's like, the mob's going to pin it on me. We have to go on the run. And so they were going on the run through Rome. It was a really fun caper, but at the same time, it wasn't allowing, had to be undercover.
So she would be like a plains person.
Yeah, she was like, oh, we're going to disguise ourselves as nuns. And I was just like, I don't think anybody wants to see Emily dressed as a nun. So it was like, let's keep it in Capri. Let's redo it. Came up with the idea of the triplet because we had that from the first movie.
Correct.
And that just sort of opened the key for everything.
But symmetry-wise, I love the fact that in the original film, they started as friends and they became arch enemies. And in this one, I noticed that they start as arch enemies, and there's sort of this backward arc.
Yeah.
You know, tell us about how
I mean, people really love that relationship between them, and it's it's a trite term that I don't like, but they're frenemies, you know. And what I love about these characters is they kind of really love each other, but at the same time they hate each other. But I think they're the only two people that each one respects in the world because they both know they're really smart. They both know they could each take each other down. And they're the only ones that kind of have an insight into the other one. You know, you see everybody else in, Stephanie's life is these terrible parents. You know, even her friend Darren is kind of shitty. And, then Emily has nobody really. She's, in this false marriage and stuff. And yeah, so it's really fun, but it's also really exciting because, like, the gay community is really, like, young gay women are so invested in them.
Young gay men and older gay men.
Yeah, no, there's this whole
I don't
thing.
know how I know this, but
somehow, exactly.
Yeah.
No, but like, there's a whole thing in the gay community about STEMily. They're very into STEMily, which is Stephanie and Emily together, and they're desperate for us to get them together. Which nothing would make me happier if we could do that.
Did you guys, when you were doing the sequel, knowing how the gay community has embraced this film, and there's actually like a podcast that has listened to it, obsessed about the two characters. Did you guys lean into that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm all about representation, and this is such a a great story and just kind of the whole thing fits into that so well, and so we don't like play into it in a way that's manipulative. It's just like I just love that that's a part of it, and the whole idea of like Dante is this is covering up this relationship, but we didn't want to make it like, oh, it's because he's gay the family would be upset. It's like, no, it's a rival gang that he's in love with. But I love that, and especially these days, it's so nice to have that out there.
Yeah, the Anna Kendrick character is so tricky because we have to buy that she's willing to do. I mean, to do another simple favor.
Yeah, exactly.
And like this one is like, no, get out of there. Why would she agree to do this? And you buy it.
That was the hardest part about the script. It was like, why would she possibly go with the person who tried to murder her on an adventure to another country? But it was really, and I credit Anna for this, because when we wrote the script, we still had her kind of, when Emily shows up, she was like really freaked out. And Anna was like, I would not be freaked out. I put this woman in prison already. So I would just be I would go toe to toe with her. And so that's why I like that she takes her on in that first scene. And then Anna, Stephanie is now such a detective who's done all these cold cases and kind of solved all these crimes. She has a thirst to know and figure out why somebody wants to do something. And so that's why she goes, she uses the context of she's going to sue me if I don't. But to me, it's more like, she's like, I have to know what she's up to. And I think I can protect myself because I already protected myself against her once.
And tell me about the character of Sean, the Henry Golden character. In the first one, he's like a dish rag.
Yeah.
And then in this one, he actually is nasty.
Oh, it's fantastic. When we wrote the script that we ended up changing, Henry was in it. The character of Sean was in it, but he was showing up, and he kind of got dragged along, and he was sort of dickless, and sort of going along. And when I sent the script to Henry, he was just like, I don't like. There's nothing for me to do in this, And I was like, you know what, you're right. And so when we were talking, and then when doing the rewrite, he was like, if Sean shows up, I want Sean to be an asshole. Like, Sean has been completely destroyed by this relationship with this woman. And so he's like, I want him to just be like drunk and mean. And I was like, that's fantastic. And he said, and the only other thing I want is when I die, I want it to be the most awful death ever. It's like, okay, I can do that.
Bless you.
That's catnip for a director, man.
Tell us about shooting in Capri, which I've been to Capri, and when I was watching the film, how did you shoot this? It's a very narrow streets, in particular that Piazzetta where they're having coffee.
Yeah.
It is so freaking narrow, and it's the heart of Capri.
Yeah, it's literally the beating heart of Capri, and my wife and I have been going there for 30 years. I know the island like the back of my hand. Everybody knows me there, so it's nice. And I've always I want to shoot something there. I just didn't know what to do, and so when the idea of doing a sequel for this came up, I was like, what do we do? I was like, oh, maybe let's set it in a Capri. I was very obsessed with her name is different now, but her unmarried name was Giovanna Battaglia, and she was the fashion editor for Vogue Paris.
She had a big wedding.
Big wedding in Capri to this hedge fund guy. They closed down the island. They took over the entire island. And I was obsessed with these pictures in Vogue that were just, they're so opulent and over the top. And so we're actually where Emily gets married by the lighthouse, which is Punta Trigaro, I think. That's where she got married. But I was like, we're going to do it out there. So when we went to scout, I was just convinced because the pictures of her wedding are out on this isthmus with grass and stuff. So we'll do it out there. We get there, it's all rocks. There's nothing there, and I realized, they built this giant deck out there to do this wedding on. So we hired the same company that did her deck. We did a kind of a smaller deck and made it pink as opposed to grass, and we basically recreated that wedding. And it was just our way in to do it. But, shooting in Capri was very difficult. The Italian government, God bless them, we had all these permits. We were going to shoot there for like 3 weeks. We're 2 weeks away from shooting, and suddenly the Italian government called up Capri and says, we're doing the G7 there, so everybody has to leave on this date. So suddenly, we only had a week and a half to shoot what I was going to do in 3 weeks there. So I kind of had to rejigger stuff, and so the week and a half we were there, all I did was shoot Capri, and get all that production value. And then we had to move to Rome. and do all the rest of the
I'm
interiors.
so sorry you had to move to Rome.
I know, somebody had to do it. I'm sorry. That's right. Don't feel bad. Yeah, it was fantastic. You know, and honestly, that's where the idea for her at Trevi Fountain in the very last scene came from, because I was staying at the Hotel Eden, which you've ever been there, beautiful. And I had this, I do like a 4-mile walk every morning, and my walk was.
And when you walk in the morning, are you dressed like this?
No, God, no. I don't want to sweat this up. Exactly.
Okay.
So I would come out of the Eden, come down, go past Trevi Fountain, up past the Pantheon, past San Eustachio Coffee, and up. I had this great walk. But every morning, and I was walking past the Trevi Fountain, and one day I was like, why don't I put Blake Lively in the Trevi Fountain like Anita Ekberg in La Dolce Vita. Exactly. So I was on fire about this idea. I called my producing partner, Laura Fisher, who's much younger than me. I was like, I got the greatest idea. We're going to put her in the fountain like La Dolce Vita. And she's like, what is that? I was like, okay, all right. So, but I was on fire about this. And I told our location people, like, we're going to do this. I'm going to put her in the fountain. And they all freaked out. They were like, you can't, my God, you can't. Nobody's allowed in the fountain. It's heresy, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I saw it in that movie, blah, blah. It's like, you can't do it anymore. So I was like, okay, well, I guess, but can we still shoot there? And then I had other Italian friends. There's some word in Italian, I don't know if you know it or not. I don't remember what it is. It's some word that is a derogatory term that means those who follow the rules.
Okay.
And so their whole thing was like, just go and get in there. You know, that's the Italian way. You'll just go. So I'm like, we're going to get in there. And so, I mean, controversy. Everybody's freaking out. It was the last scene we shot in the whole movie. I'm like, we're going to do it. We get to the fountain, and it is loaded with cops. I mean, they're surrounded by cops, and they're just like literally like, if you get her in the fountain, you will never come to Italy again. You will be banned. You'll be arrested. So that's why she's sitting on the outside of it, which actually worked out fine. It would have been kind of a mess to have her in there, but I was so obsessed with getting Blake Lively walking through that fountain.
And I was lovingly teasing you about the way you dress, because I've seen photos of you on the set, like sartorially to the nines. Yeah. Where does that come from? The fact that, I mean, it's amazing. It's delicious. The fact that you're always dressed to the nines.
You know what it is? I was so obsessed with coming up when I was growing up with pictures of old Hollywood, and you see, you know, Alfred Hitchcock on the set in a suit and tie, and Howard Hawks and John Ford, and they were in suits and ties. And I was just like, well, that's how a director dresses. And then you get on sets when I was an actor for a long time, and like, there's a guy in a baseball hat and sweatpants. I'm like, I don't want to think that my movie was made by that guy. I want to think it was made by somebody dressed nicely. And I just kind of got into the glamour of Hollywood, and I said, like, let's try to keep that going. I also just, when you're directing a movie, you are the captain of the ship.
Okay.
And I always say, like, if I got on a ship and the captain was wearing sweatpants, I'd get off the ship because I don't trust the guy. We're clearly going to crash. But you know what? I feel like I'm the boss. You know, it's my father owned an Army surplus store in Detroit. You know, really downscale store, and he always wore like a suit, a sports jacket and tie and slacks, and that was his uniform. Even though he's in the back warehouse dealing with boxes and garbage and all this stuff. And it just, to me, it was like, well, that's how an adult dresses when he goes to work. And then I had the Hollywood thing on top of it. But I like, crew guys will come up to me, like, you know, dressed whatever they're dressed in, like, hey, I think it's really great that you do this, and the actors really respect it. To me, it's a sign of respect to the people I work with, you know?
Yeah. The film has, I was mesmerized about the tonal shifts. The 1 second is drama, and then shifts into camp, and then it goes back to a different type of comedy. You know, is that something that you balance in editing, or you?
Well, that's my favorite thing to do. I always say I want to walk a tonal tightrope.
Tonal tightrope.
Tonal tightrope. There, you can have that. Put that on a pillow. No, it's everything I do is a comedy. It's just some are very, very dark comedies that people don't realize are comedies until they get in the middle of them, and the critics hate me for it sometimes. But what are you going to do? But I just like that. I'm a maximalist. I like things pushed to the very edge, but I never want it to go what I consider to be too far, where you're like, okay, that's stupid. You just want to go like, oh my God, like these, because I love extreme people, you know. In our lives, there's people who are just extreme. They're extreme personalities. And sometimes they're like, oh my God, I can't take them. There's something nice about watching them in a movie because it's like why a lot of people like horror movies. Like if you were caught in a horror movie situation, it would be the worst thing in your life. But if you're sitting safely in the seats in your theater and you're watching extreme things happening, you're like, oh, cool, because somebody's in control and I can't get hurt. So I'm watching people pushed to the very edge. And I just like that. I think it's exciting and it's fun to get actors to do that. It's fun to try to figure out a story that goes to the edge. You know, again, look, the critics hate me sometimes for it, but like either just go for it, you know, like why play it
But
safe?
when you're shooting a scene, you try different
Yeah. Yeah, we
types,
do
you know,
all
like-
levels. I don't rehearse. What I do is basically we get there, we know everybody knows what they're going to do. I kind of say the camera's going to be here, and then I say just start filming. I don't want to know what you're going to do. You have the script, so I know what you're going to do, but I don't know how you're going to play it. And then they do their thing, and most of the times I'm like, okay, that's completely wrong. You know, but I'm like, all right, well, we got that. Try this, try this, try this. And what I do is I try to move within 10 takes from them incrementally from what they come in with to what I think I want. And the irony is the things that I go like, ugh, that's wrong, is generally what I end up using because it's coming from them. It's coming from their soul. It's coming, you know, I can sit and write this stuff all day. And our writers, you know, I can work with our writers and get them to write this stuff all day. But at the same time, it's an actor has to embody these things.
Correct.
You know, and it came from years of being a TV director where I'd work on these shows where, you know, in TV, the showrunner is the exec producer is kind of God. And they, you know, send these scripts down. And if you want to change a line, you have to go and meet with them, blah, blah. So they're very controlling generally. There's exceptions to the rule, obviously. And so I was in so many situations as a TV director where I'd be working with like a really brilliant comedic actor who had a different interpretation of a joke, and they would do their version of it. The wording would be different, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, that's so great!" And I go back to the monitors, and the exec producer, showrunner, would be like, "No, they have to say it like this." I'm like, okay, so go back and go in this like back and forth for 10 takes. Say this word like this, and finally, it's just like they don't talk like you talk. Like their mouth is different. Let them bring their personality through it. They're going to make it better and make it more real versus you're in love with your words and just trying to make them do that. And so I'm very hung up on like, I'm not the guy like, just say it like this. I like, bring your thing to it. If it's wrong, we'll change it or we'll find detente. Mm-hmm. But it's crazy to hire talented people and then say, just sit on them and say, just do this, you know. So I'm very against that.
But there is one tricky scene that I wanted to hear the inside, which
just
is
one?
No, the Charity Emily scene in bed.
Very controversial.
Blake
exactly.
Lively and her twin interacting with one another. How was that achieved? Did you have a body double and then?
Yeah, well, we did it in the first movie too because you know Blake played her sister in the previous one, the other triplet. What she likes to do is we hire somebody who is a good body double, but also we make sure they can act. So they can act against her, and then she works with them, basically going like, "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to gesture this. Here's what I'm going to do." And it was very funny because she was very nervous, and it was true because we were doing this in Italy. Italians, I don't want to stereotype, speak with their hands, you know. And it was just like Emily doesn't speak with her hands, and so we'd find all these people, and they were like gesticulating all over the place. So we had to really find somebody who she could teach to do the things the way she did. And we have this amazing woman who was really a great body double and a great partner for her. And the good thing about that scene was in bed, Emily's drugged, so she's just lying there. So it's a pretty easy face replacement. So what we did is just, you know, Blake played Charity and doing her whole thing with this woman, and then we swapped places. So it was pretty easy for them to digitally kind of just like carve out her face and put it on the other woman's face till the kiss, and that was a very complicated thing. But yeah, it was, you know, it was. I mean, it's a fucked up scene. I'm not gonna lie, but it is based on
True life?
No, it's based on. I was an only child. I was very, very awkward with girls. wanted to have a girlfriend or wanted to have a romantic, relationship, whatever. And I couldn't make it happen. I would just like fantasize. If I could just clone myself, I would be my best partner ever. And so I just go, well, Charity's never had a partner. She's been stuck in, this by herself with this crazy woman. So that's, she's going like, oh, if I finally have my partner. And so that's where that came from, and so it upsets a lot of people. But what are you going to do?
It's fun. When I was, getting to the question about difficult scenes, you said which one? What others were as challenging?
I don't know. It's just all good. It's all very screwed up. This movie. Again, it just goes back to I just like really extreme stuff, and it's very funny to see how critics react to stuff and certain audience members. Like coming in, there's a bunch of people fleeing from the theater. So I'm like, okay.
Well, no, they
clearly didn't like it exactly.
No, in Santa Barbara, if you don't hit home by 9 p.m., you turn into a pumpkin.
I get that.
So they were rushing to get home.
We have a place in Palm Springs. It's the same thing there too. Literally 9 o'clock is midnight there.
No, you incinerate if you're not home by 9 p.m.
I get that.
Yeah.
No, I just, again, we just kind of like to push stuff, and pushing when Henry dies, it was like, okay, this blood should be coming out of her. It's just, I don't know. I don't make movies to win awards. Let's just say that, because I'm just like, I like genre movies. I like movies that go really far. I like thrillers. I like horror movies. I like things that just like go for it. And aren't
They're
timid.
fun.
They're fun, and everybody's so afraid in Hollywood, and so many filmmakers are like, oh, we're trying to please the critics, and we're trying to win an award. I had my perspective on it started early on because when I did the movie Bridesmaids, we got nominated for 2 Oscars, and that's a movie that has a woman shitting in a sink. So you're like, okay, clearly we did not make that movie thinking we were going to get an Oscar. So, you just do what you do, and if people like it, they like it. And if not, you entertain people, and off you go.
Last question. I love Alex Newell. I saw
the best.
In Shocked on Broadway, won the Tony.
Oh my God!
Tell us about working with him.
Yeah, I love Alex. I produced a show called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Correct.
It was on NBC for a couple of seasons. It was a fantastic show, and it just got killed. But and Alex, Alex came to us. We had this role of this neighbor, and I remember Austin Winberg, who produced the show and ran the show, was just like, should we cast this Alex, who's this very unique performer? I was like, hell yeah. And Alex just like crushed every scene that they were in and just was amazing. And I really had a nice relationship with Alex. And we had this ridiculous role of this book agent who's completely useless, And it's like, I need somebody funny in that role. And it's like, Alex, you want to do this? And, they came along. And it was very sweet. And Alex is wonderful. I mean, Alex is such an insane talent.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, the voice that comes out of that person.
Yeah, they stopped the show on Broadway and Shucked.
Yeah. Shucked. I saw Shucked on a videotape of the show because they wanted me to do a movie adaptation of it. And I was blown away watching a videotape on my computer of Alex blowing the roof off of the place. So
it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of phenomenal, you are phenomenal. I'm a huge fan, and I'm so delighted that you joined us tonight.
Please, it's an honor. I love Santa Barbara, and I love this festival. I was at this festival a number of years ago, I think, because of Bridesmaids, I think. And
that's right. Yeah, you were at the writers' panel.
The directors' panel. Yeah. And so thank you, everybody. And my wife and I have been coming here for years. We always stay at San Ysidro.
Hope you come back.
Thank you.
Come back. Thank you, everybody. Spread the word on the film.
Cheers. Thanks, everybody.